Hey everyone, welcome to 2026, and the first race of the season is going to be an absolute banger. Not only are we at Daytona, but we also have the latest version of the GTP tyres that got introduced just in time for the Daytona 24. So I'm going to be taking that out today in the Porsche 963, as this was done before the 24-hour event that I participated in. So I was running the Porsche as practice for the rest of the team. And I'm going to be starting at the back, not by choice, but because I had a disconnect in qualifying, which means I missed out on having a chance at qualifying at the front of the pack.
Okay, mate, get
So I
ready.
have a lot of work ahead of me because this is a 3K field. We're going to get off to a poor start because there's a bit of a false start with that
Go.
car in front. That's going to put me right down to the back of the field going into turn one. I don't mind this too much because this is a long 45-minute race around Daytona, and a key part of it
Left
is
side.
this early phase of the race whilst the tyres are cold.
Still there.
I'm on the
On your
outside of a
left.
three
Good.
wide there, so I'll just play it nice and safe, give plenty of space on the inside for the two cars, which I use to also protect the tyres by being very gentle on them at this stage, because I
Good.
found
On your
you
left.
lose
Clear
a
left.
lot of wear in the early stages whilst they're getting up to
Car
temperature.
in front
So
is
by being
marked.
gentle, by loading them up slowly, as you'll see on my throttle inputs and my steering, I'm giving the tyres enough time to load up as I'm accelerating, braking and turning. So I'm not going to take
Left
as much
side.
out of them, and you're going to see the big difference that makes
Still
towards the end
there.
of the race, especially when I come up against the one who has
Hold
got
your line.
nothing left on their tyres. But for now,
Clear
just
left.
focusing on the traffic and being careful, just look at my throttle inputs here. I'm being very patient and getting on the power fully. And the guys in front of me are also struggling, just trying to get the power down a bit too aggressively. We're also no longer last now, as it looks like a certain Mr. Ridgway is doing a bit of a safe pit stop whilst we're coming down to the notorious new bus stop. This one is really bad on the cold tyres. You have to
Don't drive
not
with
cut these
شكرا.
curbs, otherwise they will bite very viciously. As even though the setup I'm running is normally very good over the curbs, I need to still be cautious on this first lap. Otherwise, I'll end up like that guy in front who has lost a lot of momentum. So
The
they are
guy in
now
front
side
is
by side on the
racing.
banking. I'll be watching to see how they perform into turn one, as on this second lap, the tyres start to enter their real operating temperature window. So people start to get a lot more confidence on them, and this is where moves start to happen. My first move here is going to be into the inside, following the car in
13th
front, because
place.
this is the optimal line into turn one. But I'm still
Good.
very
Right
cautious.
side.
The tyres are not there yet, and I've still got the guy
Clear
around my
right.
outside, but we're going to get the position on him and hopefully hold it into the first horseshoe by just keeping to that inside line and still gently carrying the speed into the corner, not
Car
over
ahead
stressing
is
the
Powell.
fronts, but it's mostly the rears I have to be careful with here. So you're going to see on my throttle, I'm going to be extra cautious getting the power down coming out of this second horseshoe as the cars are still battling in front of us. You can see that white Porsche was slightly offline, and I still have the guy behind keeping me honest. So I do have to make sure that I'm not falling off the pace whilst I'm managing my tyres on this start. So I'm going to get a little bit more aggressive on the throttle, but there's that little bit of a kick, which is the tyres reminding me they are still not perfect and I need to still use some caution. Now, coming into the bus stop on this lap, we're going to have the first incident of the race. Watch the second car in front of us. Coming over that next curb, they have a bit of a slide and they are off into
Incident
the
at the bus
barrier.
stop.
The bus
Looks
stop
like
claiming its
marked.
first victim of the race. Now, we're going to go on board and analyze what happened here. Hopefully, passing on some of my own knowledge when it comes to this new bus stop, because it is just so deadly, as we're going to see. This guy did everything just right, but it's this third curve here. You can see that kicked his rear end up into the air, and that's because of the new 3D curbing. So as we zoom in, his tires are actually going down in a dip between the two curbs, and that then launches it back up, which really unsettles the car. So my main advice is just to not cut that third curb. Adjust your line through the bus stop so you are avoiding it. Cut the fourth curb. You can take that one a lot better, though there is an off track if you take too much of it, but that will still give you a fast exit onto the banking. Now back to us though, and we are sizing up this guy for a move into turn one.
Keep
I
fastest
do
laps
want to
along the
try around
barrier.
the outside just to see what it's
133.4.
like, because there is a
It's
lot
just
more
done.
stability. There's not as
133.6.
much grip
Fuel
as there
window
may
opens
seem to
on
be, but
lap
the car is
11.
a lot
Left
more
side.
stable on the braking, which means I can carry
Still
more
there.
brake
Clear
into the
left.
corner
That was
and
at
potentially try and stay
133.9.
around his outside.
Exit.
But it's
Behind is
just not
pitted.
going to happen because that inside is just so good at Daytona. Look ahead though, and there's two cars that have
There's an
come
incident
together
at
in the first
International
horseshoe,
Horseshoe. Looks
and
like
that's going to give
it's
us two
Julian.
positions. So we'll have a look back and see what's happened with them. We can see the Porsche makes a bit of a move down the inside, but there is then contact as the BMW turns in. Perhaps there could have been more space left by them, but it was still an audacious move by the Porsche. They at least let the BMW get going first, but that's cost them both multiple
Heads
positions.
up, there's a car
Back to us
rejoining.
though, and I've been keeping with the group in front because I'm watching this spectacle as they go free wide into turn one.
P9.
I'm waiting in the wings because someone's surely going to lose out on this one. And indeed, we've got car four coming a cropper in front of us. They've lost out being that far wide. And now they're going to defend into the first horseshoe, which leaves me having a look to see if I can set up a
The guy
better
ahead is
exit.
Neville.
Might be able to get a good run into the second horseshoe where I might be able to then send it down the inside. But I'm just not going to be close enough. I'm not going to be brave enough to come from this far back and risk losing time to the cars in front because the slipstream is very critical here. All I need to do now is see if he's going to make a mistake coming through here or coming onto the banking where some people do get a bit too aggressive getting on the throttle. So I'm just going to take my line here whilst I'm watching to see what he does. He is a bit shallow and he's a bit squiggly, but he keeps control of the car. And we settle now onto the banking, but he has lost some time to the cars in front. So by the time we come around onto the start finish straight, I am right behind him and
Car
looking to
left.
the outside with enough overspeed where I
Still
feel
there.
like I might finally make this move work. So I'm going
Car
to brake
left.
later, carrying it into the corner, though I
Still there.
do hesitate turning in, fearing I might hit him. So
Still
that's
there.
actually going to allow him to
Clear
maintain the
left.
position that you can
P9.
see we come out very close behind him. I now have a look to the inside, but I don't really commit to the send, so it doesn't throw him off too much, and he still makes it to the apex, which means I'm going to be stuck behind him for yet another lap. This time round, we are much closer, and I'm going to try and play the mind game. I want to see if I can throw him off that inside turn by either making him go wide or seeing if I can slip underneath him. So I do brake a little bit earlier, see if I can get to that inside, but he's actually braking later. Not seeing that I'm going to get there, I just focus now on getting the smooth exit, and we are much closer. So I'm actually going to send it down the inside this time using that brave pill,
Car left.
keeping it nice and tight, and
Hold
now
your line.
focusing on getting on the power whilst
Still
avoiding
there.
that wheel spin that had made me lose the momentum on the
Still
exit.
there.
And we're just ahead of him coming
Clear
into the
left.
kink, and he's going to back out, giving us the position. All I need to do now is make sure I stay
The car
nice
in
and
front of us
smooth.
is now
I'm going to
halted
keep
as
the
it enters
slipstream
into
of the cars
West
in front of
Horseshoe.
us, putting us up one place with hopefully more to come. 2 laps later, and I've kept with the car in front, and we're in the mid part of the GT3 traffic. There weren't as many in this split, but there was still enough that I had to be on my toes, especially through this first sector. I give the Porsche a minute just to see which side he's going to commit to before
Clear
trying
right.
around the other side and use the improvements in the tyre model to now go to the inside because we are a lot
Car
closer to the
left.
GT3 cars
Clear
on
left
both
side.
braking and acceleration out of these
Clear
slower
left.
corners, which means we can minimize the time loss for both parties. Though I still had to be careful, especially in situations like this coming up where he dives to the inside, opening up a gap with the Porsche GT3, and I want to try and follow him through, so I need to still make sure I stay nice and tight. Though that does still come a
Left
cropper
side.
sometimes because
Clear
we're going to get hit
left.
in the side by the Porsche, perhaps not expecting me to still be there, but we get away with it. Though it does throw me off a little bit and perhaps traumatizes me because I feel like this Porsche is about to come down on me in the banking, so I do back off
Car
quite a bit
left.
there, losing
Clear
time,
left.
and the car behind me closes up a fair bit, looking to the outside, but they're actually going to back off, not wanting to complicate
Tread
things
hard.
going
Make
into
them
the
work
bus
for
stop,
it.
especially when we can both see some GT3 traffic in front of us. So I've got really lucky with that, but can't dwell on it. Got to now think because we have this traffic, so I need to slow down a little bit at the entry just to prioritize the exit because the
Gap
two
to
cars in front
Halford
have been slowed
ahead is
down a
now
fair
zero
bit
point
more by
0.4.
that traffic than I have. And with that exit, we're now tucked in nice and tightly coming in towards turn one, where
Coming
things
up on
get a
some
bit
slower
interesting
cars. These
again
guys are
here with some
fighting for
more luck
position.
added
Class
into
leaders
it.
in this
Coming
group.
across the start finish line, the car in front lifts off the power, and I'm nearly caught out by it, so I suddenly
Car right.
dive to the inside, putting the move on,
Hold your
making
line.
sure I stay
Right side's
nice
clear.
and tight, then getting on the
Nice
power,
move,
and we're
mate.
going to get the position while staying nice and close to the car in front of us. Looking back, that was a real big surprise there. He did not have any sort of slowdown or penalty that he was trying to serve by going wide and lifting off the power. And he also loses a second position as the car behind us follows through on the move and gets the place as well. This all set us up though now for the next car in the line. Helped by the fact as well we've had both gapped the cars behind, so I have plenty of space to play with and set up the same move going into turn one. I'm going to make a big mistake though because I do misjudge his
That lap
braking,
time was
and now I'm
1 on your
suddenly
right.
sending it down the inside, trying to avoid a
Clear right.
collision
You're
between the
2 tenths
two
off
of
the
us.
pace in the
This
second
is
one.
another good
Left
showing of the
side.
tyre model though, because in the past
Clear
that
left.
lockup would have sent me off into Narnia, but I'm able to keep it on the track. So thankfully no harm done between the two of us. And now this second time round, he clearly knows it's coming because he just takes the racing line, allowing me down the
Car
inside. And
right.
I'm going to get the move done with no drama this time,
Right
nice
side's
and
clear.
tight and on the power. probably playing smart because he wants me to
Nice one,
start
mate.
chasing down the next guy, which we're going to start doing over the next few laps. We also then had to take a pit stop, which is where some strategy did come into things. The guy in front of us opted for a undercut, and I just went for my planned pit stop to try and avoid the worst of the
Traffic behind.
GT3
Watch your
traffic.
mirrors.
So we're going to come out behind him with less than a second. Not too bad overall, considering I had been chasing
Slower
him
class
down.
car ahead.
And the guy behind it has also opted to stay out pretty long, risking GT3 traffic, just seeing if he can get a good overcut on the both of us by minimizing the amount of fuel he'll have to take. And a few laps later, he is still out. And we've got Mr. Ridgway behind us. It looks like he's finally going into the pits himself because of
So
where
can't
he
leave in the pit
started.
lane.
We've got more GT3 traffic,
The
and I
gap
can see
to
straight away I'm
P7
not going to get
ahead
these
is
two
increasing.
Porsches.
It's
So
now
I'm just going to
1.0
wait, be
seconds.
patient, try and
P7.
set up a good exit.
Last
We've
lap was
actually got
at
a GTP off to the right, and that
1:54.4.
causes a
It's
bit of a
into
cascade
turn one.
effect as we've
Looks
got
like
another
it's
car
Thomas.
rejoining. But thankfully, we get away with no damage in all of that. So we
Car
can now
right.
look back at what just happened in turn one. And on board with the car, they have a big old lockup, sending them into that poor Porsche. And thankfully, they also don't catch that LMP2 that was behind them. You can see on the offboard, it's a bit of a late lockup, but it is there and is what sends them off into the Porsche. On board with the LMP2, and you can see just how much of a surprise they get as the Porsche sweeps in front of them, and they're able to get away scot-free. Our luck was also intact as on the same lap, we're going to get another freebie as another car
There's an
goes
incident
off
in
in the
West
second
Horseshoe. We
horseshoe.
think it
I
might be
just about see him
Dennis.
now, so I do hold my line extra tight here just to avoid their rejoin, but that is another freebie for us, putting us up to P5. This is a case of what I was talking about earlier, where the tyres can start to go off towards the end of the race if you've been abusing them earlier on. He comes in a little bit too hot, and the back end just comes around on him very slowly, which is a good sign of those tyres going. Now, I felt like at this point of the race, I wasn't really going to be catching the two cars ahead just before the end. I was gaining a couple tenths every lap, but it was just not enough because though these guys were fighting, they were not fighting near enough for me to catch up. But once again, Lady Luck is going to smile on us as coming onto the oval. The guy in front of us we had been chasing down has a massive moment, getting on the powers just too aggressively for the level of tyre wear. Thankfully, he's able to recover, but that's another position for us, which puts us onto a podium
Car in
if we
front of us
finish
is
now.
Schroeder.
But I think we might still have a chance of catching the guy in front because you never know what's going to happen in these races, and we still have some time. And we've seen Lady Luck is on our side for this race, and she's going to strike yet again because the guy in front has a bit of a disconnect. And when he comes back in, he's in the runoff of turn one, which is going to cost him a shed load of time. And as we come around the corner ourselves, we are going to be right behind him. So that consistency is paid off because we're now able to capitalize on all this luck that's been thrown our way. And I can also now get a good look at
Slower
how
class
he's
car ahead.
driving because he's definitely going to be feeling a bit of pain on his tires at this late stage of the race. My tires are probably not much better than his, but I'm not having as much difficulty. And we do have a little bit of GT3 traffic still coming at us, who I recognize as the GT3 that hit us early on. So I'm going to be a bit more cautious. He does leave
Left
the door
side.
open, and I make sure I stay nice
Still
and
clear left.
tight, but he doesn't repeat what happened earlier. So we get away clean. And we're still right behind Ollie, who is still driving exceptionally well after that disconnect. So it's not going to be an easy battle for P2, especially because this guy did qualify on pole. So he definitely has the pace on him. It's just going to be a case of if I've saved enough tyres to give me an offset on the skill between us and see if I'll be able to secure the position before the end of the race.
P3.
It was all starting into turn one. I'm not close enough for any sort of move here or the first horseshoe. So I need to try and
Good
claw that
consistency.
time
Keep them
back
coming.
whilst also evaluating how his tyre wear is affecting his driving. But he's still got a great run coming out of this first horseshoe where he's going to start gapping me more and more. I'm going to need to try and close that back so I can be close enough because turn one is likely going to be my best opportunity. So I'm going to set myself up here for a good exit outside of
Slower
the
class car
horseshoe.
ahead.
And he has a bit of a moment here. You can see he's sliding on the rear tyre. So that's really showing me that he is struggling, like we saw that other GTP who lost it coming through the second horseshoe. He's also a little bit slow coming onto the banking, which might be another sign that he's struggling on those rear tyres. But you can see I'm also struggling a bit as I'm trying to get the power down to stick with him and not lose the gap that I'm going to need coming into the bus stop, especially because there is going to be this GT3 Porsche coming up, and this is going to really complicate things. I can't let Ollie get ahead of me here, so I'm going to have to force myself through on the Porsche He keeps to the outside and breaks a bit early, which gives us a line. But now I need to focus on the exit, sticking nice and close. Ollie gets a good
That's
run
2 minutes
himself, but I'm
left.
still
2
tucked in
minutes.
right behind him, which is exactly what I needed. However, I'm not gaining as much as I could be because he's still running a lower downforce setup. That's probably why he's losing more on the rear tires than I have. But it also means that I'm going to have a potential better run into turn one because I'm closing up and I'm going to look to the outside just to see if I
Car
can set
left.
up the switchback to the inside. But he's going to
Still
brake
clear
late
left.
and I'm
Lap
just
time
going
was
to
at
follow him through, but he's carrying a
1:34.1.
bit too
Coming
much
up on
speed
some
and
slower
he's going to
cars.
lose
These
control in
guys are
front of
busy
me. I
flanking on the
can't react
right.
in time, so we're
Clear
into
right.
the side of
Exiting
him
into
and I'm
turn
just
one.
trying to make
Looks
the
like
best of the
it's slowed
situation by
up. Clear
trying to
right.
knock him so he is facing the right way. However, it just seems to cost us both a great deal. I was expecting there could have been an incident with his worn tires, but this one did catch me by surprise. I'm not happy with how it played out, but I'm not sure how I could have done any better in that situation. Because when we slow things down on my onboard and watch my brake trace here, he is in a bit of a slow spin. So I don't notice it at first, but when I do, I lock the fronts, just trying to really slow up there because I know I can't get to the inside in time to avoid the incident. So the best I can do is try and slow down and minimize the potential damage between us, which might have been okay, but unfortunately, Ollie knocks his car out of gear. So although I do try and punch him into the right direction, he's going to lose several positions to the GTPs that are following not that far behind us. And then to add some salt to the wounds, he was going to lose it going into the bus stop, just cutting that first curve too much and hitting the sausages, which launches him in the air, leaving him just to tow back to the pits, rather angry at me. I was able to hold on to my position at least, so we're going to come across the line in P2. A very good finish, I do think, coming all the way from the back like that. However, it was mired by what happened between me and Ollie. I did want to apologize after the race, but I got a rather angry message. So I decided just to keep my mouth shut. And instead, I open the floor to you guys to say what you think about that incident in the comments. But that is also the end of today's race, and I hope you have all enjoyed it. If you did, please consider giving me a like and subscribe because that does help me a great deal on the channel. And I hope to see you all again next time.